Let's bring our final speaker up here. Brandi Davis is a licensed marriage and family therapist, nationally certified school psychologist and principal of Sequoia School for the Hart School District. She is certified in applied suicide intervention skills, social skills training for teens with developmental and autism spectrum disorders, and nonviolent crisis intervention prevention. It's a lot of skills and knowledge there. Brandi has over 15 years of experience working in mental health and education. It's a defining moment when you discover your uniqueness. It's the key to tapping into your hidden strengths. Please welcome Brandi Davis.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for the invite and introduction, Alan and Whitmer. It's a pleasure to be here and see you all in the audience. I want to share a little bit of my story with you, but I want to talk about where I'm presently at, and then we'll go back in time. Presently, I work for the William S. Hart School District, and I'm privileged to work with some of the most exceptional students in the Santa Clarita School District. I work at a school called Sequoia. It is a special education school for students with severe emotional disturbance. We work with a population that serves from 7th through 12th grade, and these students come to our school due to an IEP, and it being an individual education plan, and there being different types of needs for students. Some could have challenges with mental health, specifically in terms of anxiety, depression, suicidality, psychosis. Psychosis in the version of having auditory or visual hallucinations. And all of these things have to have a direct impact on the student being able to access their education and their ability to receive academic instruction. These items could result in school phobia, social anxiety, agoraphobia, and things of that nature. Sequoia is specially designed with a team of staff members to support students with these types of exceptional needs. And what's amazing is the landscape of Sequoia is just beautified by the uniqueness and the talents of these individuals that I get to work with every single day. I didn't arrive at this place in my career by happenstance. It wasn't serendipitous. It started from very early on in my life and having some major pivotal moments that came into fruition at one defining time. So there were sort of 3 pivotal moments, and then I sort of arrived at, okay, this is the message that the universe is sending me. I remember growing up, my first pivotal moment, and this is me. You can add glasses and a severe speech impediment. I was not dapper, okay? There was nothing dapper about me. I was met with a lot of ridicule when I was younger. My mom had a habit of making our clothes because we were economically challenged for some part of my time. And the fabrics she would choose were interesting. She thought they were cute. The other kids thought they were fun to torture me with. She would buy fabrics that had the little boy and little girl kissing on it and think that that was a great shirt. And in 3rd grade, kids, yeah, it was not a privilege. It was not a privilege. And I had leg braces, which looked antiquated. And actually, the leg braces in the 70s and the early 80s were antiquated. This is what my leg braces looked like. And out of frustration, I would destroy the wallpaper in my bedroom. Does anybody remember when wallpaper was a fad? Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, it was out of frustration. I was not a tolerant child of being tortured at school, and I was resentful of having to wear orthopedics all the time. And so it would become this sort of blistering fight. And so I would take my legs, to create a visual for you, and scrape the walls of the braces with my braces and destroy the wallpaper in the house. That was my physical manifestation of feeling alone and isolated, because my differences were observable to kids. And the kids weren't kind about my differences. And then I opened my mouth and I couldn't say my R's, my S's, or my T's, right? So I had a speech impediment and I had orthopedic impairment. And at that time, I could only own feeling isolated and alone and alienated at that time. And what I found was there are all sorts of ways that people who are different present themselves as, and they also manifest feelings of isolated and being alone. But ironically, there are subgroups of all of us everywhere. And that was the thing that I came to realize. That was one point. I went to a speech, I had an IEP, and I had speech services, and I found my people through receiving a resource through speech services. And so in that moment, I was like, okay, even the nonconformists have some conformity. Oh, even the person with this speech articulation issue there's a group. There are folks that are relatable. So that was one shining moment. And I want to just pinpoint that was a special education moment for me, right? I was too young to capture the idea that later I would move into special education and mental health, and I'll talk to you, but I want to start to build that bridge for us right now. So that would be my childhood moment. I'm going to start here next. You're looking at a slide, and one of the this particular slide is near and dear to my heart, and I want to talk to you about the second defining moment in my life. One of the second defining moments of my life is I told you that we lived very, very meagerly. I am a daughter of a veteran that did multiple tours, okay? And my father came home a broken man from serving. He had PTSD, and he was someone that you did not want to walk in the bedroom and startle him, because he slept with a gun under his pillow. And he struggled. He struggled to find his way back after serving in the military, as a lot of our veterans do in this country. And due to that struggle and him feeling isolated and trying to integrate, because being a veteran, it is sometimes hard to find your people. Your friends are still on tour. The people that you've lived with that haven't been, haven't died by combat are still there. You're integrating home, and so there's a uniqueness to you that is, it's hard to figure out how to tap into that. Well, my father struggled with suicidal ideation and made 2 attempts on his life. Luckily, both were unsuccessful. One of them I found. I found him, and he had attempted to hang himself. It was a very traumatic moment for me as a child, as you can imagine. And from that moment, it taught me another pivotal, this was the second defining moment. Remember I said there were 3. It taught me something that I hadn't been able to wrap my mind around. My observable differences, which I was starting to grow some strength in, were observable, right? I had the braces, I had you could hear my speech impediment, I was wearing headgear. His differences were not. His challenges were mental health, coming back and struggling with PTSD, right? And figuring out how to manage and go through life with trying to familiarize and acclimate and assimilate to a culture that you had been away from for such a long time. The third defining moment was when we talk about suicide and suicidality, was that another aspect of my life was my sister making an attempt on her life, and she did it as a very common way, as deduced from research, through taking a series of pills. My dad's medication, as a matter of fact, that he had received for dealing with his PTSD. And so that's when it became strikingly familiar to me that there are people walking around that aren't speaking about the challenges of their differences. And the concern that I have with that is that when we are not speaking about our differences, we're also not talking about our strengths and what we're capable of. What I heard a lot of was when people saw me, they were deducing what I couldn't do. They assumed I couldn't run. That wasn't true. I could run. They assumed I couldn't do. They were concerned with all of the things that I couldn't do. Until one day, I was sitting in a classroom, and this young Jewish man came up to me, and instead of saying, "What can't you do?" he said, "Tell me what you can do." And I didn't know what to say. No one had ever asked me any aspect of that. Moving forward, from my sister and my father, I've been able to have it resonated with me that not everything's observable, but there are things that are internal, that other people aren't necessarily aware of. And so much so that it's very common. I mean, it's very common. 490,000 people a year engage in self-harm. 490,000 people a year engage in self-harm. 121 suicides a day, completed suicides, not attempts, completed. And what I find is that these statistics are so staggering because when we sort of talk about the differences of individuals, we make them sound like there aren't people like other people, that there aren't groups, there aren't resources, that this person is alone in this. And the fact of the matter is the minute I start looking around, there is tons of support. And there's tons of people that can build on strengths and strength finders. And one of the aspects that I wanted to show you and share with you is there's a lot of risk factors for folks that have a propensity towards self-harm and suicide, and those risk factors usually pertain to people not being able to come to terms with some of their differences that they may have. Some of them might be mental health. They might incur a severe injury, which can cause or be a product that initiates depression and things like that. But what you'll find is that through talking about people's unique differences and strengths, you will have the most fruitful and meaningful conversations of your life. I find that environmental factors, life stressors, and historical factors can have a direct impact on the way that people respond to different situations. And those situations become pivotal or defining moments in the way that we respond and develop our resilience. And we build our resilience on our communities. And so what I've learned from my three incidences, being one with my observable pieces, two with my father who struggled with mental health, and then three, my sister, is that it's not only okay to be different, it's really important that people start the tough conversations about being different. They have these presentations, they share their differences and how they've overcome different challenges. We move towards discussing these existential topics that other people are afraid of. You know, what's the meaning of life? Where is your purpose? We validate each other's concerns, considerations, struggles, and most importantly, we honor that the differences are what allow us to grow a deeper well of empathy and to really, really step into supporting other people in our community that might be struggling with having some other kind of difference. The last piece that I sort of want to leave you with is, it's actually one of the two last pieces, is that I've found that working with kids and folks that have acknowledged their differences, they've really become their gifts in life. I find that they have deeper, more meaningful conversations in my personal experience. I've found that they have an ability to harness a strength and a stamina and a perseverance that couldn't have otherwise been tapped into. And I find that the most creative and innovative folks are sometimes the ones that are agents of change and through adversity have been able to capitalize on that experience. And the third piece that I wanted to say, which was the kind of the what really illuminated everything for me, is my dad found a group of veterans that had come back and settled. The military helped him receive that kind of mental health services. My father went on to be a youth pastor, and in the 15 years of being a youth pastor, he repaired bikes and took care of and worked in the soup kitchen, delivered meals to ailing adults or seniors, and delivered these bikes that he would repair to these at-risk kids in poorer neighborhoods. My sister, who I shared with you, also struggled with and continues to struggle with anxiety and has become since a special education attorney for kids with social emotional needs, because the stigma that is attached to mental health is very interesting, and all kids need support. And so I've seen people in my life close to me develop and utilize and capitalize on the adversity that they've been given. I've seen them be creative, and I've seen them become deeper, richer individuals that have an ability to give back to the community. So it's no surprise that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, which is absolutely privileged, working with the most extraordinary individuals in our community who struggle with depression, anxiety, school phobia, and that I get to be a catalyst for them to find their uniqueness and their talents. When I think about what the kids say to me all day, it's a wonderful, wonderful small campus nestled in Santa Clarita across from the district office, is that they welcome the fact that no one in their path prior to maybe coming to the school has really helped them do some exploration of what their actual strengths might be. It's difficult for people to talk about what they're good at or talk about themselves, but when you can get students to talk about a success that they had that day, you can build on that dialogue. And these students, the other thing about them is there's an intensity and a growth of the skill in terms of empathy that would otherwise, it's amazing, because they have the ability, maybe they're not in the situation, similar to Mark, maybe they're not in the situation that another student might be in, but the well of empathy runs deep because of their life experiences. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to be a part of. My very closing pieces is I just want to show you, this is my class that did a leadership project about 6 weeks ago. And it was actually built around a concept of it's okay to be different. This is just one of my small classes. And they're amazing kids, and I'm very proud of them. And so I hope you all understand that these kids, they're capable and they're brilliant, and it's absolutely okay to be different, because let me tell you, these are the future special ed attorneys of this country. These are the future therapists of this country. These are the future pastors that are repairing bikes, and that is what I have for you this evening. Thank you for listening.